Justin Baldoni's company is on the offensive once again, this time taking aim at the actor's former publicist. The accusations now against Stephanie Jones are that she is the one responsible for leaking text messages that apparently started this whole legal battle between Baldoni and Blake Lively. We are going through these new claims right now. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. All right, so before we get into this, big announcement for you guys, something that you won't want to miss. We have a brand new Law&Crime podcast I want to tell you about. I host it. It just dropped on your feeds exclusively on Wondery Plus. It is called LUIGI, and it is diving deep into the Luigi Mangione case that is unfolding right before our eyes. This isn't just any legal case. It is one that is sparking a social and cultural reckoning, and it's forcing all of us to ask some pretty tough questions. It's going to bring you the facts, the twists, the real-time drama that is shaking up the conversation, so don't miss it. All 4 episodes are out right now on Wondery Plus. Hey, here's a question for you. How did the legal battle between Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively really begin? Right? It's a good question. Well, according to a brand new filing, the blame could potentially fall on Baldoni's former publicist. You see, another battle line has just been drawn. Justin Baldoni's company, Wayfair, and his publicist, Jennifer Abel, are now suing Stephanie Jones. And this is important in the ongoing legal war between actress Blake Lively and Baldoni, her co-star and director of the film It Ends With Us. Why? Because Jones was Baldoni's publicist when all of these rumors were circulating about bad blood between Baldoni and Lively. And I mean, we know the accusations. She sued him, his company Wayfair Studios, and others, alleging that Baldoni sexually harassed her during the production and then orchestrated a PR campaign to smear her and ruin her reputation. He filed a lawsuit of his own against her, her husband Ryan Reynolds, and others, including the New York Times, claiming they actually defamed him, weaponized false allegations against him, in part to take control over the film. And now we have Jones, and this is so important. Remember, Jones had already sued Justin Baldoni, Wayfair, as well as Jennifer Abel, who had worked for Jones and worked on Baldoni's PR strategy, as well as Melissa Nathan, a crisis management expert. Now, in her lawsuit that was filed in December of last year, she claimed that Abel and Nathan conspired against her to steal her clients, including Baldoni, and that he went along with all of it, and that they plotted behind her back to initiate this alleged smear campaign against Blake Lively, and she had no part in it. For example, there are text messages embedded in her lawsuit allegedly showing Abel's attempts to take Baldoni with her and away from Jones. Those text messages addressed to Abel from Melissa Nathan, the crisis manager, read, "And once you are gone, we will be on the accounts together and make really good money and be happy. Let's keep it steering that way. And you take this bleep client and never talk to her again, I swear to God." But now, Abel, Baldoni, and Wayfair all separately filed answers responding to the allegations in this complaint. And in these formal answers, they either deny or admit the allegations in each paragraph of Jones' complaint, or they cite lack of knowledge or information to make the appropriate response, or they say no response is required. There are also assertions of some defenses, like Jones fails to assert facts that actually make up a viable legal claim, or Jones lacks standing to sue, meaning she doesn't have the legal right to sue, or there's the argument even if Jones suffered harm, it wasn't because of us, we didn't cause it, and so forth. But in those filings, there is something else what I want to talk about. What I really want to discuss are the counterclaims, a counter lawsuit filed against Jones. This is fascinating. So let's go to the counterclaims that were filed by Jennifer Abel and Wayfair, again, Justin Baldoni's company, against Jones respectively, claiming that she is at fault for everything that happened. For instance, in Wayfair's filing, they allege, "It was at this time that Stephanie Jones, seemingly in the midst of a downward spiral, decided to stir up unnecessary drama and discord, throwing elbows for self-interested reasons, undermining and eventually terminating Jones' Works point person at Wayfair," that means Jennifer Abel, "refusing to follow instructions and generally causing more problems than she was solving. In so doing, Jones ruptured her relationship with the Wayfair team and Baldoni and ultimately rendered any continued engagement by Jones or Jones Works untenable and intolerable. That is especially so given what Wayfair and Baldoni later learned about the true magnitude of Jones' malice." So they claim that Jones and Jones Works treated Baldoni and Wayfair as a lower prestige client, and that her business wasn't really doing well in July of 2024 when all this apparently went down. She was supposedly losing clients. Business Insider was apparently working on an unflattering story of her. And then she apparently gets word that Jennifer Abel, her employee, the person who'd been working with Justin Baldoni, is going to resign and set up her own shop. And Wayfair explains that it was during this time that Baldoni and Wayfair were in massive PR crisis mode as the news stories were coming out about problems and tension between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni in regards to the movie It Ends With Us. So Wayfair claims that Jones had no, quote, viable ideas on what to do, so that's when Jennifer Abel recommended hiring Melissa Nathan, who Jones allegedly viewed as a competitor. And they claim that Jones tried to undermine Abel. And this part is interesting. Quote, leading up to the film's premiere, Lively's and Baldoni's teams had negotiated an uneasy truce in which neither side would participate in negative coverage of the other. Lively's team had already broken that truce, but the Wayfair team didn't know that then. And then, this is when they claim Stephanie Jones, Baldoni's former publicist, did something really, really bad. On August 8th, 2024, Jones, in another desperate attempt to reinsert herself, contacted a Daily Mail reporter about a story they had published about Baldoni and Lively. She did so in direct violation of Abel's instruction per Wayfair, not to talk to the press given the truce with Lively's team. So Wayfair argues this had quite the fallout, Stephanie Jones doing this, namely that Lively's publicist, Leslie Sloan, and Sony, which had co-financed and distributed the film It Ends With Us, quote, learned that someone from Baldoni's team had been communicating negatively to media. It was clearly Jones, and Wayfair's leadership was livid, as was Sony. All parties were desperate to prevent an all-out slugfest between Lively and Baldoni just as the film was about to be released to the world. With her reckless and unauthorized activities, Jones had made that scenario much more likely. Hey everybody, this is a Law and Crime legal alert. Did you know that children are being diagnosed with serious conditions like type 2 diabetes and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and the research is potentially linking ultra-processed foods to all this? Yeah, well, Morgan & Morgan is stepping in to fight to hold these food companies accountable. With decades of experience fighting large corporations, they are ready to stand up for the families who deserve justice. If your child under 21 has been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes or fatty liver disease, then visit www.forthepeople.com/food or scan the QR code on screen to learn more. So here's the thing. Wayfair claims Jones was told, stop, don't do anything further. But then they allege that Leslie Sloan, again, Blake Lively's publicist, allegedly started planning negative stories about Baldoni, thinking that the truce had been broken and that was Jones's fault. And they say Jones started to panic, that she was going to be blamed for all of this. And they claim she wanted to reach out to Sony and Lively's camp. And according to Wayfair, despite being instructed not to do this, Jones allegedly responded that she could do whatever she wants to clear her name, that she tried to fix the situation. So Jones allegedly reached out to Sony, allegedly put all the blame, quote, on her team, and ruptured her relationship with Wayfair and Justin Baldoni. And then they claim it was Jones who actually ended up advocating for a more aggressive PR strategy when all this stuff was going down between Lively and Baldoni. For instance, embedded in the filing is an apparent text message from Jones that reads, quote, I sent you email with what I think strategy should be, as Justin is not being represented in these stories. We have to fight for every story. And then there's, I swear with my hand to God, I have never leaked anything to any outlet, and I think you know this. I just want to help Justin and Wayfair. And then there's August 14th, 2024, where she allegedly sent an email to Wayfair's CEO, Jamie Heath, recommending things like flood the zone with positives and prepare alternate stories. However, Wayfair claims that it reiterated to Jones that it didn't want her working on this, didn't want her doing anything, and leave it to Jennifer Abel and Melissa Nathan. And then you go to August 21st, when Wayfair claims Jones fired Abel, threatened her, seized her phone, and this is when we get to the crux of the allegation that Jones violated her agreement with Wayfair to keep confidential Wayfair's confidential and proprietary information. This is so key. Quote, Within just hours of terminating Abel and seizing her phone, Jones had apparently already gone through it and shared confidential information relating to Wayfair and Baldoni with Leslie Sloan, Blake Lively's publicist. On information and belief, Jones also shared such information with other third parties, and in no event pursuant to a subpoena or any kind of lawful court order. That day, Sloan contacted Nathan disclosing that she had seen her text messages about Lively, which could only have come from Abel's phone, and gloating she should expect to be sued. And you remember, if you have been following this saga from the beginning, you remember in Lively's original complaint and in the New York Times piece that came out after, there were all of these text messages embedded between Nathan and Abel that allegedly show proof of a smear campaign against Blake Lively. So this is huge. This is essentially placing the blame of all this at Stephanie Jones' feet, at least according to this narrative. Quote, on information and belief, Jones reached out voluntarily to Lively's team, offering what she believed to be ammunition against Wayfair, Baldoni, Abel, and Nathan. Wielding reams of Abel's private communications, which, with some unscrupulous massaging and creativity, could be sliced, diced, and stripped of context to support a false narrative about them. In turning over these materials to Lively, Jones knew full well that the blowback would engulf not only Abel and Nathan, but also current Jones Works clients Wayfair and Baldoni. On information and belief, that was precisely the goal. So to be clear, they don't have definitive proof of this per se, but that's something that they hope to get in the lead up to trial during discovery. But based on the circumstances and the events, they believe they can show this to be the case. Quote, in December 2024, the Wayfair team finally learned the full extent of Jones' betrayal. As a result of Jones' deliberate and unlawful disclosure of their private information, which Lively's team exploited to concoct a false and disturbing narrative about them, Wayfair and Baldoni have been irrevocably harmed. Following the coordinated drop of Lively's fantastical Civil Rights Department complaint and an explosive New York Times article, Wayfair and Baldoni became objects of public scorn and derision. Baldoni has been wrongfully labeled as a sex pest. His accolades have been rescinded and his future projects thrown into doubt. The same is true of Wayfair, which has been falsely cast as an enabler of sexual misconduct and the architect of a vicious retaliation campaign against a victim of such misconduct. Indeed, its very viability as a studio has been thrown into doubt as a direct result of Jones' actions on behalf of Jones Works. So Wayfair is suing Jones and Jones Works for several claims or causes of action. Breach of contract, that they failed to provide professional services to Wayfair, that they egregiously breached the confidentiality provision that I discussed earlier by, quote, voluntarily and maliciously disclosing confidential information. There's breach of implied covenant of good faith and fair dealing, namely that Wayfair followed the terms of its agreement with Jones and Jones Works, but in any event, they're excused from their obligations because of what Jones allegedly did, that Jones acted allegedly in bad faith, that Wayfair suffered, and Wayfair is seeking all forms of damages. But that is not the end of the story, because there are even more shocking allegations asserted by Jennifer Abel in her own answer and counterclaim. So, aside from getting into other alleged issues with her employment and of Jones' purported behavior as a boss, which, by the way, includes this claim, Jones also pried into her employees' private lives without invitation. As detailed by Business Insider, when employees called in sick, Jones would FaceTime them to confirm they were actually sick. In at least one instance, an employee who had taken a personal day to attend a funeral received a FaceTime call from Jones during the ceremony. Jones was apparently suspicious of his whereabouts. So aside from all that and all those allegations, Abel also alleges that the turnover rates were high at Jones Works, that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson had dropped her, and that she was paranoid, that she allegedly demeaned and embarrassed Jennifer Abel, potentially due to Abel's close relationship with clients and partners. That's the allegation. Quote, Abel was often on the receiving end of her often bizarre outbursts. In one instance, Jones announced to Abel's subordinates that she had learned through psychic readings that Abel was an alcoholic and a gambling addict. And she claimed that Jones was erratic, that she wasn't sleeping, that she was allegedly creating fake social media accounts to, quote, troll former employees and journalists. But then everything came to a head when Abel claims on July 10th, 2024, she informed Jones that she was going to be leaving the company, and she said Jones apparently didn't take that news very well, because embedded are apparently text messages from Jones that read, "You just quit on a Zoom with your employee, Jen, then blasted your entire senior team your resignation. Grow up. And then there's, your behavior is appalling. You'll see. Now, according to Jennifer Abel, as her departure date drew near, Jones became more combative, and Abel was allegedly removed from emails that she was left in the dark about business matters. And then we go to August 21st, 2024, 2 days before her last day, when she claims she shows up to Jones Works' office in Beverly Hills and, quote, there, she was confronted by a physically imposing security guard, a forensic data extraction technical expert, and an attorney sitting at a conference table awash in documents. Also present was Jones' chief of staff, Gordon Duran, who had flown in unannounced from New York. After being ushered into the conference room, Abel noticed that the security guard was posted just outside its doors, positioned between the conference room and the office entrance, blocking the exit. There, the attorney gestured at the documents and instructed Abel to review and sign them. The attorney stated that Jones Works suspected Abel had retained proprietary information on her personal laptop. Abel was told that Jones Works would have grounds to sue if she did not allow them access. Caught completely off guard by the hostile and intimidating display, Abel fell into a state of shock. Knowing she had done nothing wrong and desperate to get out of there, Abel signed the documents without digesting their contents. And by the way, this would be a way to say that these contracts are void, they're null, they were done under duress. Afterward, the lawyer demanded that Abel hand over her personal laptop, which Abel did. So she claims that she was then falsely accused of stealing company information. And she claims that the attorney demanded she turn over her phone, and she agreed but said, listen, can I at least retain my personal phone number? Can you release that to me? But here's the thing. The filing continues, quote, after express confirmation from the Jones Works chief of staff and attorney that they would release the phone number if she went straight to the Verizon store, Abel handed them the phone and was ushered out of the building as her colleagues watched in disbelief. So Abel went straight to a Verizon store a short distance away, and once there, Verizon contacted Jones Works to coordinate the release and transfer. The Jones Works chief of staff assured Abel and Verizon that they were in the process of effectuating the release and to bear with them for a few minutes. Abel never heard from him again. After 4 hours of desperate unanswered calls, Abel left Verizon in panic and despair. Abel realized Jones had double-crossed her in a very serious way. By refusing to release Abel's phone number, Jones Works had usurped her contact information and cut off Abel's access to critical accounts protected by two-factor authentication linked to that phone number. As a result, Abel lost access to her iCloud, including her text messages, photos, and contacts, bank accounts, utilities, insurance, and virtually every other sensitive account. By contrast, Jones now had unrestricted access to everything stored on Abel's phone. Her text messages, emails, personal photos, again, very important with what we talked about with the allegations before. Jones could read her communications with her fiancé, parents, friends, everyone. Jones was acting purely out of spite. Now, embedded in the filing is an apparent message from Jennifer Abel from her new cell phone, where she reaches out to Jones and another person, writing in part, quote, I'm writing you both as a personal plea to please release my cell phone number. And, quote, this is just mean and egregious. And from there, the allegations in Abel's filing echo what was mentioned in Wayfair's. And then there's this. On information and belief, Jones stewed in resentment and indignity, unable to bear the loss of another Jones Works client. She set out to take revenge on Abel, Wayfair, Baldoni, and Nathan, exploiting the data she had unlawfully accessed and stolen from Abel's phone. So Abel is suing for various causes of action too. Her counterclaims include that her employment agreement with Jones Works violates California's labor code because it may illegally require Abel to resolve her disputes with her employer outside of California, that improperly deprives her of the protections of California law. Then we have a restraint of trade claim, so namely that non-competition, non-solicitation components of her employment agreements, they are void, they are unenforceable. Unfair competition, namely that Jones and Jones Works alleged use of illegal contract provisions unlawfully restrains Abel from seeking work elsewhere, that she has lost money and property. There's an invasion of privacy claim, namely that Jones and Jones Works invaded the private affairs of Jennifer Abel by improperly accessing, copying, and disseminating the contents of her personal cell phone. There's another invasion of privacy claim. That's about false light, though. The idea here that Jones and Jones Works alleged allegedly publicly disclosed information or material about Jennifer Abel's moral character and personal and professional light that cast her in a false light that was highly offensive. And then there are other claims like intentional and negligent infliction of emotional distress. There's even a false imprisonment claim for allegedly improperly detaining Abel at JonesWorks' LA office. That was the whole security guard thing that I mentioned before. And she is suing for damages too. Now, Kristen Thaler, who is an attorney for Stephanie Jones, released a statement to Variety, and it reads, quote, "Miss Jones' December lawsuit is based entirely on facts and concrete evidence. Our suit clearly shows that Jen Abel conspired with Melissa Nathan and others to steal reams of confidential documents, clients, and staff, and eventually attempt to destroy the business that Miss Jones spent decades building. Abel, Nathan, Baldoni, and their co-defendants attempted to achieve these outcomes through bullying, distortion, and outright disparagement. These facts are backed up by dozens of messages provided in the suit we filed a month ago and cannot be credibly disputed. Having no facts or evidence, we see a familiar playbook. Smear our client, culminating in the work of fiction masquerading as the counterclaims that were filed yesterday." Now, Baldoni's attorney, Brian Friedman, also released a statement to Variety. It reads, "It is undeniable that Stephanie Jones initiated this catastrophic sequence of events by violating the most basic of privacy rights, as well as any remaining trust her clients held. No stranger to stirring up crisis scenarios for departing clients, Ms. Jones maliciously turned over communications from the phone she wrongfully took from her own partner to her cohort, Lively's personal publicist, Leslie Sloan, immediately after Jones was terminated for cause by Wayfair due to her own wrongful behavior." So, as we have seen throughout this whole case so far, including the allegations back and forth with Baldoni and Lively, we have different versions of events that transpired. And what is very interesting about this whole saga is, yes, there are certain incidents that you'll have where each side denies something happened. One side will say it will happen, the other side will say it didn't happen. But there are other times, and I'm seeing this so much in this case, there are other times where both sides will agree something happened, right? A text message was sent, we can't deny that it was sent, an event happened, a meeting happened. But you have two radically different characterizations and explanations for why it happened. And that is going to be the difficult job for a jury to sort through. Very fact-specific, very much based on credibility. And the text messages in this case, so important. Do the words themselves tell us what we need to know? Or is it all based on context? Is there more to the story? I'll tell you this much. At this point, tough to say. But we will continue to follow what happens next in the ongoing saga of Blake Lively versus Justin Baldoni. That's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.